People ask me all the time what my secret is, like I must have some complicated answer, some expensive ritual, some rare ingredient they haven't heard of yet. I tell them the same thing every time. I eat real food. I have eaten real food for 102 years, and every nutritionist who ever tried to tell me otherwise has since retired or gone on ahead of me entirely. I'm still here, still sharp, still cooking my own meals in my own kitchen every single morning. Make of that what you will. Now I want to address something before we get into it because it needs to be said plainly. The anti-aging industry is worth billions of dollars. Billions. They sell you creams and serums and supplements and powders and programs, all promising to slow down time and all designed to make you feel like the answer is just one more purchase away. Child, please. The people making the most money from your fear of aging are not themselves aging particularly well, in my observation. They are aging anxiously, expensively, and with a lot of product on their faces. I am aging the way my grandmother aged. With real food, real work, real faith, and real sleep. The 5 foods I'm going to tell you about today do not have a logo. They do not have a marketing budget. Most of them have been on this earth longer than recorded history. And they are doing things inside your body that no laboratory pill has ever successfully replicated, because the Lord designed them with a complexity that chemistry is still trying to reverse engineer. Let's go through them. Number 1. Sweet potatoes. The most underestimated food on the American table. Let me tell you about sweet potato season when I was a girl. In the fall, when the vines had died back and the ground was ready, my daddy would go out with a fork and turn up those sweet potatoes from the dark earth, and we children would carry them in by the armload. They smelled like the dirt and something sweet underneath it, something warm and promising. Mama would cure them in a warm, dry place for a week or 2. That's when the starches convert to sugars and the flavour deepens. And then we had sweet potatoes from harvest until the following spring. Baked, mashed in soup, sliced and fried in a little fat. They were on the table at nearly every meal for half the year. I did not know then that I was eating one of the most nutritionally dense foods available to a human being. I just knew they tasted like something the Lord had put genuine care into. Now here is what they contain in plain language. Sweet potatoes are loaded with beta-carotene. That is just the science word for the orange colour. And your body converts it into vitamin A, which protects your eyes, supports your immune system, and maintains the integrity of every surface in your body, inside and out. Skin, lungs, gut lining, all of it. As we age, maintaining those surfaces becomes more critical, not less, because they are your body's first line of defense against everything that wants to damage it. Sweet potatoes also contain something called anthocyanins in the purple varieties. That is just the fancy word for the deep purple pigment. And those compounds have been shown to reduce inflammation at the cellular level. Inflammation is what ages you. Not time itself, but the slow burn of chronic inflammation that damages tissue, stiffens vessels, clouds thinking. Sweet potatoes actively fight that process. They told us to be careful about starchy vegetables, that they would spike your blood sugar, that you should eat less of them. The people giving that advice were steering you toward engineered low-carb products they had financial interests in. A whole sweet potato, eaten with its skin, with a little fat to help your body absorb what's in it, digests slowly and steadily. It is not the problem. The processed food they were steering you toward is the problem. Eat your sweet potatoes. Bake them whole. Eat the skin. Put a drizzle of real olive oil on them and some good salt. The good Lord made them orange because he wanted you to notice them. Pay attention. Number 2, bone broth. The food they called peasant cooking until they discovered it worked. Now this is the one that modern people abandoned entirely and are now breathlessly rediscovering as though it is a new invention. I have been watching the food industry for over a century, and I will tell you, there is nothing more reliable than them selling back to you, at great expense, exactly what your grandmother was doing for free. My mother made bone broth every single week of her life. When a chicken was used, the carcass went into a pot. When bones came from any other meat, into the pot. Covered with water, a splash of something acidic, vinegar, or the juice from whatever was being cooked, and left on the back of the stove for hours, sometimes all day. The house would fill with a smell that I cannot describe except to say it smelled like being cared for, like safety. She strained it and kept it in the cold, and it would gel, turn solid and wobbly when cold, and that gel was the sign that you had done it right. That gelatin came from the collagen in the bones and connective tissue, broken down by the long, slow cooking into something your body could use directly. Now here is the science translated properly. Collagen is the structural protein that holds your body together. Skin, joints, gut lining, blood vessels, bones, all of it requires collagen. After about 35 years old, your body's collagen production begins to decline. That is why joints stiffen, skin loses elasticity, the gut becomes more permeable and reactive. You are literally losing your structural scaffolding. Bone broth provides the building blocks, the amino acids, specifically glycine and proline, that your body uses to rebuild collagen. It is not magic. It is supply and demand. Your body needs materials to maintain its structure, and bone broth provides those materials in a form that is highly bioavailable, which just means your body can actually use it rather than working hard to break it down first. They dismissed bone broth as old-fashioned peasant cooking for decades. Now they sell it in cartons for $8 and call it a wellness product. It is exactly the same thing my mother was making in a pot that cost nothing. The bones were going in that pot regardless of whether scientists had validated the practice. She knew it made people well. She did not need their permission. Make it yourself. Get bones from a butcher or save them from whatever you cook. Simmer them for 8 to 12 hours minimum, longer if you can. Add a splash of apple cider vinegar to help pull the minerals from the bones. Strain it. Drink a cup every day. Your joints, your skin, your gut, and your immune system will all have reason to be grateful. Number 3. Fermented vegetables. What your great-grandmother kept in that crock in the cellar. Now here is a food tradition that nearly every culture on Earth developed independently, and that the modern food system nearly destroyed completely. Nearly. But it is coming back, and I am glad of it. Every fall my grandmother filled crocks. Cabbage packed tight with salt became sauerkraut. Cucumbers in brine became pickles. Beans, beets, turnips, whatever was abundant went into fermentation. Those crocks sat in the cellar through the winter, and what came out of them in the cold months was bright, sour, alive in a way that cooked vegetables are not. I remember the smell of the cellar in January. That sharp, sour, fermented smell that meant food was waiting. That smell is the smell of beneficial bacteria doing their work, transforming ordinary vegetables into something more nutritionally potent and more useful to the body than the original fresh vegetable was. Here is what is happening inside that crock, in plain language. Fermentation is the process by which beneficial bacteria consume the natural sugars in the vegetable and produce lactic acid as a byproduct. That acid preserves the food and creates an environment where the bacteria thrive. Those bacteria, and there are billions of them in a spoonful of good sauerkraut, are what the scientists now call probiotics, which is just a fancy word for the good bugs that your gut needs to function properly. Your gut is not just a digestive organ. Scientists now understand that it is essentially a second brain. It produces neurotransmitters, regulates immune function, influences mood and cognition, and communicates constantly with the actual brain in your head. The community of bacteria living in your gut, your microbiome, which is just the word for the whole ecosystem of microorganisms inside you, that community runs more of your health than most people understand. When it is healthy and diverse, your immune system is strong, your mood is stable, your digestion works, and inflammation stays low. When it is disrupted by antibiotics, by processed food, by stress, everything else starts to follow. Fermented vegetables feed that community. They introduce beneficial bacteria and they provide the fiber those bacteria need to thrive. They replaced fermented vegetables with shelf-stable pasteurized pickles that have no living bacteria in them because the pasteurization killed everything. They replaced the crock in the cellar with a bottle of probiotic supplements that costs $40 a month. My grandmother's sauerkraut cost the price of a cabbage and some salt. Make your own if you can. If not, buy real lacto-fermented sauerkraut or kimchi from the refrigerated section, not the shelf-stable kind, not the pasteurized kind. The live cultures must still be alive when you eat it for any of this to matter. A tablespoon or two a day with your meals. Small amount, consistent. Your gut will quietly, steadily, gratefully improve. Number 4, sardines. The food nobody wants to talk about and everybody needs to eat. Now I know. I know what some of you are thinking, and I'm going to ask you to set that reaction aside for just a moment and listen to me. Sardines are one of the most nutritionally complete foods available to a human being on this planet. They are loaded with omega-3 fatty acids, the kind that reduce inflammation throughout the entire body. They are rich in vitamin D, which most people are deficient in, and which governs immune function, bone health, mood, and cognitive function. They contain vitamin B12, calcium, selenium, and high-quality protein in a form that is easy to digest even for an older digestive system. And because they are small fish, they accumulate almost no mercury or other heavy metals, which is a real concern with larger fish. My first husband, God rest him, grew up near the coast, and sardines were a regular part of his family's table. He thought nothing of it. He ate them on crackers, in salads, mashed with a little mustard and onion on bread. He brought that habit into our household, and I adopted it, not enthusiastically at first, but increasingly so, as I came to understand what they were doing for us. The omega-3 fatty acids in sardines, the scientists call them EPA and DHA, but I call them the oil your brain and your blood vessels need to stay flexible and functional. Those fats reduce the chronic inflammation that drives aging and disease. They keep blood vessels supple. They support brain function. They reduce the tendency of blood to clot inappropriately. They lower triglycerides, which is just the word for the fats circulating in your blood that damage vessels when they are too high. They told us to be afraid of fat for decades. They told us fat was the enemy and we should eat low-fat everything. While we were eating low-fat crackers and low-fat salad dressing full of sugar and chemicals, rates of heart disease and cognitive decline kept rising because the fat was not the problem. The wrong kinds of fat were the problem, the processed vegetable oils, the trans fats, the things manufactured in a laboratory and inserted into food that had no business being in food. Real fat from real fish, fat that the Lord built into the sardine specifically to help you absorb the fat-soluble nutrients the sardine also contains. That fat is medicine. Eat sardines twice a week at minimum. Get them packed in olive oil or water, not in soybean oil. Add them to salads, mash them on toast with a little lemon. Eat them straight from the tin if you are not feeling elaborate. They do not need to be complicated. They just need to be eaten. Number 5, blackberries. The one I picked wild and will never stop eating. And here we are at the last one. The one that is sitting closest to my heart, because it is the one most connected to a memory I carry like something precious. When I was a small girl, there was a thicket of wild blackberries behind our property. In late summer, when the berries were fully ripe and the canes were heavy with them, my mother would take us out in the morning, early, before the heat, with pails and careful hands, because those canes have thorns that mean business. We would come back with stained fingers and stained mouths and full pails, and Mama would put up jars of jam and preserves that lasted through the winter, and we ate the fresh ones by the handful right there in the thicket without apology. I can still smell those mornings. Dew and warm earth and something dark and sweet coming off the canes. That smell is one of the most complete memories I carry from childhood. Blackberries contain some of the highest antioxidant levels of any food on earth. Antioxidants, in grandma language, are your body's rust prevention system, because aging is in significant part an oxidation process. Your cells get damaged by what the scientists call free radicals, unstable molecules that bounce around damaging everything they contact. and antioxidants neutralize those free radicals before they can do their worst. The deep dark color of a blackberry is the visual sign of an enormous concentration of those protective compounds. Specifically, blackberries are rich in anthocyanins, the dark pigment, and ellagic acid, which has been studied extensively for its protective effects against cellular damage. They contain vitamin C, vitamin K, manganese, and more fiber per serving than almost any other fruit. That fiber feeds your gut microbiome, the community of good bacteria we talked about with the fermented vegetables, and the combination of fiber and antioxidants makes blackberries one of the most comprehensively protective foods I know. They also contain something called resveratrol in smaller amounts, the same compound found in red grapes, which has been studied for its effects on what scientists call sirtuins. Those are proteins that regulate cellular aging. In plain terms, resveratrol helps your cells age more slowly by supporting the internal mechanisms that repair and maintain them. The good Lord packed that into a blackberry and made it taste like summer. They told us fruit was full of sugar and we should be careful. Yes, Lord, fruit contains natural sugar. It also contains fiber that slows that sugar's absorption, antioxidants that protect your cells, vitamins your body cannot make on its own, and compounds that no supplement has successfully replicated. The sugar in a blackberry is not the same as the sugar in a soft drink, and treating them as equivalent is either ignorance or deception, and I have my suspicions about which. Eat your berries. Blackberries, blueberries, raspberries, the darker the better, because the colour is the medicine. Fresh in summer when you can get them, frozen the rest of the year. Frozen berries retain their nutrition remarkably well. Put them on your oatmeal, eat them plain, put them in your yogurt. Just eat them consistently. The Lord made them grow wild, for free, where anyone could find them. That is not an accident. He always puts the best medicine where everyone can reach it. Now, here is what I want to say about all 5 of these foods together, because there is something that ties them into one coherent truth. Every single one of them is a whole food, unchanged, unprocessed, close to the form in which it was created, the sweet potato as it came from the ground, the bones as they came from the animal, the cabbage transformed by nothing more than salt and thyme, the sardine as it came from the sea, the berry as it came from the cane. Your body knows these foods. It has been processing them for thousands of generations. It knows exactly what to do with them, exactly how to pull out what it needs and use it and eliminate what it doesn't. That recognition, that biological fluency between your body and real food, is what no engineered supplement can replicate, because your body does not recognize synthetic compounds the way it recognizes food that grew in soil or swam in water or ripened on a vine. The anti-aging industry will keep selling you the illusion that the answer is newer, more expensive, more technologically advanced. And your grandmother's crock of sauerkraut and her pot of bone broth will keep quietly outperforming everything they manufacture, just as they always have. But I will close with this because I do not want to leave you thinking that food is the whole answer. It is not. I've eaten well my whole life. And I have also buried 3 husbands. I have outlived 2 of my own children. I have had grief that had no bottom to it, and loss that I did not know how to survive until I survived it anyway. And I am still here not only because of what I ate, but because of how I chose to live. I chose to keep going. I chose to find beauty in ordinary mornings. I chose to forgive people who had not earned it, because carrying unforgiveness was too expensive for this body I was responsible for stewarding. I chose to laugh when laughter was available, and sometimes I had to look hard for it. I chose faith, not as a comfort but as a conviction, as a settled understanding that this life has meaning and that the one who gave it to me is not finished with me yet. That conviction, more than any blackberry or sardine, is what has kept the light on behind my eyes after 102 years. Feed your body well. Feed your spirit better. Both require daily attention, and neither can substitute for the other. All right, I have berries to rinse and a pot that needs tending. Go eat something real today.